My wife scoffed, "If you can't stomach my family's business advice, leave the check and walk away." I stood up and replied, "You can fund them with your engagement ring. I'm filing for divorce." When she realized I wasn't bluffing, she blew up my phone with 82 panicked voicemails. Those voicemails sat untouched in my deleted folder for a month. By the time I officially filed the paperwork, the shock had worn off, replaced by a cold, mechanical focus. But to understand how an 8-year marriage detonates in a single evening, you have to understand the quiet, grinding disrespect that paved the way. I own a commercial vac company in downtown Denver. It isn't sexy. It doesn't get written up in tech blogs. We replace 20-ton rooftop chiller units for data centers, hospitals, and high-rise office buildings. It is dirty, heavy, call building maintenance at 3 a.m. work, and it pulls in high six figures annually. Rebecca's family always treated my business like an embarrassing hobby. They considered themselves sophisticated coastal elites, despite living in a heavily mortgaged house in the suburbs. Her older brother, Julian, was a serial entrepreneur whose startups inevitably crashed into spectacular bankruptcy. He spoke exclusively in buzzwords, synergy, disruption, blockchain. Her younger sister, Chloe, was a faux lifestyle influencer drowning in secret credit card debt, taking photos with shopping bags she would return the next day. For 8 years, I swallowed the insults. I smiled through Thanksgiving dinners when Julian offered to mentor me on scaling my little plumbing gig. I paid for the dinners, the vacations, the bailouts when Chloe couldn't make her car payment. Rebecca always defended them. She'd put a hand on my shoulder and say, "They're visionaries, Liam. You're a blue-collar guy. You just process the world differently." Last October, Rebecca told me she had booked a timber cabin in Aspen. She called it a critical sibling bonding weekend. It was $4,200 a night. I paid for it, assuming I was buying a relaxing mountain vacation with my wife and a few quiet hours by a fire. We arrived at 6 p.m. on Friday. I carried the bags up the stone steps. The moment I walked through to the back patio, the illusion shattered. Julian and Chloe were already sitting by the outdoor fire pit. They weren't drinking beers or catching up. They were sitting perfectly upright, sliding thick, leather-bound pitch binders across the cedar table. Julian wanted $150,000 for a vaporware crypto trading application. Rebecca hadn't brought me up there to bond. She brought me up there to act as their personal ATM. I told them I needed a minute to unpack and went inside. Before dinner, I walked into the massive slate-tiled kitchen to pour myself a drink. The family's shared iPad was sitting on the granite island, the screen unlocked. I wouldn't have looked twice, but a group chat notification popped down from the top of the screen. It was from Chloe. "Is the plumber ready to cough up the cash?" I froze. My hand hovered over the ice bucket. I tapped the screen and scrolled up. For 3 months, the three of them had been meticulously planning this weekend. The group chat was a masterclass in manipulation. There were screenshots of my company's public revenue estimates. There were debates about which night to ask for the money. And right in the middle of it was a message from my wife, sent just 2 days prior. "Just stroke his ego tonight. He doesn't understand high-level finance or tech, so if we pressure him enough at the table, he'll sign the check just to feel like he belongs in our world." I stood in the quiet kitchen, listening to the hum of the luxury refrigerator. She saw me as a blue-collar cash cow, a dumb, useful tool to fund her family's endless delusions of grandeur. It didn't even hurt. It just felt incredibly clarifying. I walked out to the patio. They were swirling the $300 bottles of Bordeaux I had purchased the week before. I sat down. Julian immediately pushed a dense, glossy contract across the table. "So, Liam," Julian said, steepling his fingers, "let's talk about leveling up your outdated portfolio. Heating and air conditioning is cute, but software is the undeniable future. We're offering you a friends and family entry point into a decentralized exchange protocol." I looked at the contract. I didn't touch it. I pushed it back with one finger. "I'm not investing a single dime, Julian." The patio went dead silent. The only sound was the popping of the fire pit. Chloe rolled her eyes, heavily, theatrically. Rebecca leaned back in her chair and let out a sharp, condescending laugh. "Come on, Liam," she said, her voice dripping with artificial patience. "Don't be so stubborn. You literally fix air conditioners for a living. Let the smart people in the family handle the big investments." That broke the dam. For the next 10 minutes, they fired jabs. Julian mocked my steel toe work boots. Chloe made a comment about my truck. They laughed at the way I preferred domestic beer over the imported wine they were currently drinking on my dime. Every time they landed a hit, Rebecca's smile grew wider. She was performing for them. She was showing them that she had the dumb plumber completely under control. "You know what?" I said. My voice dropped. It wasn't angry. It was just heavy. "I might fix air conditioners, but my company netted over $2 million last year. Meanwhile, your last app got investigated by the SEC, Julian. So no, the dumb plumber isn't funding your federal fraud." Julian's face turned a violent shade of purple. Chloe gasped like she'd been slapped. Rebecca slammed her wine glass down, splashing dark red liquid across the expensive cedar wood. "You are embarrassing me," she shouted, her face flushed with rage. "My brother is offering you a gold mine. If you can't stomach my family's business advice, leave the check for the investment and walk away." The sheer, staggering disrespect of the demand echoed off the dark mountains. I looked at the three of them. I reached into the pocket of my jeans and pulled out my heavy set of truck keys. "You're right," I said. "You can fund them with your engagement ring. I'm filing for divorce." I walked through the house, grabbed my duffel bag, and walked out the front door. I got into my truck and drove down the mountain in the pitch black, leaving them stranded in Aspen. The next morning, sitting in a diner outside of Denver, I called my bank. I canceled the credit card attached to their return flights. I canceled the remaining balance on the cabin. Fast forward 7 months. I was standing in my new corporate office. We had just moved into a larger space to accommodate our growing fleet. I was in the middle of finalizing a massive municipal contract, a multi-year deal to service the HVAC systems for every public school in the county. It was the biggest win of my career. Julian's crypto app had collapsed exactly the way I knew it would, only worse. He was facing federal wire fraud charges. The SEC wasn't just investigating him anymore. The DOJ was involved. My desk phone buzzed. My receptionist sounded deeply uncomfortable. "Liam, your ex-wife is in the lobby." I walked out to the reception area. Rebecca was standing by the glass double doors. She looked haggard. The polished coastal elite arrogance was completely gone. Her hair was unwashed, and she was clutching a thick manila folder stuffed with legal bills. "Liam, please," she begged the second she saw me, taking a step forward. "Julian is going to federal prison. The lawyers are demanding a massive retainer. My parents leveraged their house to pay the first round, and the bank is threatening foreclosure. We need your help to pay his defense attorney." I looked at the woman who had sat on a luxury patio 7 months ago and called me a glorified plumber to amuse her arrogant brother. "I don't understand high-level finance," I said quietly. "I'm just the ATM, remember? And this machine is permanently out of order." I didn't wait for her to start crying. I nodded to my site foreman, who had walked up behind me. He stepped forward and gently but firmly escorted her out the glass doors. I turned around and went back to building my empire. I signed the municipal contract that afternoon. I thought it was over. I thought the past was finally severed. That evening, I was sitting at my kitchen island eating takeout when my phone rang. It was Arlo, my accountant. I answered on the second ring. "Hey, Arlo, did the school board countersign the paperwork?" "Liam," Arlo said. His voice was tight, careful, the kind of voice a man uses when he's about to deliver terrible news. "Are you sitting down?" "I am. What's going on?" "I just got off the phone with the bank's compliance officer. Federal prosecutors reviewing Julian's wire fraud case issued a subpoena this afternoon. They flagged a series of irregular, high-volume transfers." "Julian's an idiot," I said, rubbing my temples. "What does that have to do with us?" "The transfers were flagged because of where they ended up, Liam," Arlo said, his breath hitching slightly. "They were funneled into an escrow account tied directly to the municipal contract you signed this morning." I stopped chewing. The silence in my kitchen suddenly felt suffocating. "What are you talking about? We don't use an escrow account for the school board contract." "I know we don't, but the originating account that fed the escrow, Liam, it's registered in your name. It's under your social security number, and it lists your VAC company as the primary guarantor." My stomach dropped. The room tilted. "I never opened an account like that." "I know," Arlo said quietly, "but whoever did had your tax returns, your articles of incorporation, and a pristine copy of your signature. And they've been moving Julian's stolen crypto money through it for the last 6 months." I hung up the phone and stared at the dark window of my kitchen. 6 months ago, we were in the middle of the divorce discovery process. Rebecca had unlimited access to my home office before she finally moved her boxes out. She had my tax files. She had my corporate seals. She hadn't just come to my office today to beg for money. She came to see if I knew. My phone vibrated against the granite countertop. It was Imogen, my corporate lawyer. I swiped to answer, but before I could say a word, she cut me off. "Liam, do not go to your office tomorrow. The feds just froze your company's operating account." I stood up, my chair scraping harshly against the hardwood. "Imogen, I have payroll on Friday. I have 50 guys expecting checks. If that account is frozen, it doesn't matter," she said, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "It's a blanket freeze. The DOJ thinks your VAC company is a shell operation for Julian's fraud ring. They're coming for the servers in the morning." I stood there in the quiet of my kitchen, the phone pressed hard against my ear. The silence after Imogen hung up was deafening. My takeout container sat on the granite island, the food entirely forgotten. 50 guys. That was the only thought looping in my head. 50 guys on my payroll. Pipefitters, welders, senior HVAC technicians, apprentices, guys with mortgages, guys paying off trucks, guys with kids in braces. Friday was 3 days away. If my operating accounts were frozen, I couldn't cut checks. If I couldn't cut checks, my guys couldn't buy groceries. I set the phone down, walked over to the sink, and splashed cold water on my face. The panic was there, a tight cold knot right beneath my sternum, but I shoved it down. Panic was a luxury I couldn't afford. I picked up my phone and dialed my site foreman. He picked up on the third ring. Background noise, a baseball game on a TV, a dog barking. "Hey Liam, what's going on? It's past 8. "Thad, listen to me carefully," I said, keeping my voice dead level. "Do not route anyone to the main shop tomorrow morning. Nobody punches in at the headquarters. You text the crew leaders right now and tell them to meet at the diner on 4th Street at 6 a.m. coffee and breakfast on me." Thad was quiet for a second. The baseball game in the background suddenly muted. "Liam, did something happen with the school board contract?" "No," I said. "It's a legal issue. An administrative hold on the building. I'm sorting it out, but I don't want the guys sitting in the parking lot waiting for the doors to open. Just keep them away from the shop. Reroute the morning dispatches directly to the job sites from the diner." "All right," Thad said slowly. "I'll make the call." "You okay, boss?" "I'll be fine, Thad. See you at 6. I hung up. I spent the next 4 hours sitting at my kitchen island, pulling up every personal bank account, every retirement fund, every emergency line of credit I had access to. Imogen had said they froze the company's operating account, but I needed to know the blast radius. By 2 a.m., the reality set in. The federal federal freeze was a blanket sweep. Because I was listed as the primary guarantor on the fraudulent escrow account Rebecca had set up, the DOJ didn't just lock down my business. They locked down everything with my social security number attached to it. My personal checking account showed a balance of exactly zero, accompanied by a stark red banner reading account restricted, compliance hold. My savings were locked. Even the credit card I used for gas was declining when I tried to run a $1 test charge online. I had exactly $2,000 in a fireproof lockbox in my closet and a half tank of diesel in my truck. That was my entire net worth until this was untangled. Payroll was $85,000. I didn't sleep. At 5:00 a.m. I showered, put on my work boots, and drove to the diner. I sat in a back booth and watched my crew filter in. These were men who worked with their hands, men who trusted me to keep the lights on and the money flowing. I bought them all breakfast using the cash from my lockbox. I walked around the tables, shaking hands, giving them their dispatch slips, acting like everything was normal. I smiled. I made jokes about the weather. It felt like I was swallowing glass. At 7:30 a.m., I left the diner and drove to my shop. I didn't pull into the lot. I parked 3 blocks away, at the edge of a strip mall, giving me a clear view of my own building. Imogen had told me not to go near it, and she was right. It wasn't like a movie. There were no flashing lights, no SWAT vans or guys kicking down doors. It was painfully, boringly bureaucratic. 3 unmarked black Ford Explorers were parked diagonally across my loading bays. 6 people in dark windbreakers with yellow lettering on the back were walking in and out of my glass double doors. They were carrying collapsed cardboard boxes. I sat in my truck, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, watching federal agents dismantle my life's work. They were bagging up the Dell server racks that held all my client histories. They were taking my filing cabinets. They were taking the physical ledgers. At 8:15 a.m., my passenger side door opened. Imogen climbed in. She was wearing a sharp gray suit, holding a large unbranded coffee cup, and looking at the scene through my windshield with flat, clinical eyes. "I told you not to come here, Liam," she said, taking a sip of her coffee. "I'm not there. I'm here. The DOJ doesn't appreciate semantics," she replied, pulling a thick manila folder from her leather tote bag. "Drive. We're going to my office. Arlo is already there. We have a lot of ground to cover, and the clock is bleeding out." I put the truck in drive and pulled away from the curb, forcing myself not to look in the rearview mirror. Imogen's office was on the 14th floor of a glass high-rise downtown. It smelled like expensive wood polish and ozone. When we walked into the corner conference room, Arlo was already pacing. He had his laptop open, connected to a projector that was throwing a massive PDF onto the far wall. His tie was loosened, and he looked like he hadn't slept either. "Sit down, Liam," Imogen said, dropping her tote onto the long mahogany table. "Arlo, walk him through it." Arlo stopped pacing and ran a hand through his thinning hair. He clicked his mouse. The PDF on the wall zoomed in on a signature line. "This is the master agreement for the escrow account," Arlo said. His voice was tight, vibrating with nervous energy. "It was opened 7 months ago, exactly 4 days after you walked out of that cabin in Aspen." I stared at the screen. It was my signature. Every loop, every sharp angle of the L and the M. It was flawless. "That's my handwriting," I said quietly. "No, it's not," Arlo corrected. "It's a high-resolution vector scan of your handwriting, and we know exactly where it came from." He clicked the mouse again. A new document appeared on the screen. It was a standard financial disclosure form, the kind of form you fill out during the preliminary stages of a divorce. My signature was at the bottom. "Look at the tail on the M in Liam," Arlo said, pointing a laser pointer at the wall. "Notice how it cuts off slightly, like the pen ran out of ink for a microsecond?" He clicked back to the escrow document. The exact same flaw was there, a microscopic break in the ink line. "She used the divorce discovery documents," I said, the realization settling over me like a heavy, suffocating blanket. "I handed her my entire financial life on a silver platter because the court ordered me to." "Exactly," Imogen said, taking the seat at the head of the table. "Rebecca didn't just steal your identity, Liam. She weaponized the legal system to do it. The court required you to provide 3 years of tax returns, your articles of incorporation, and full financial disclosures. She took that packet, digitized your signature, and walked into a bank to open an escrow account in your company's name. How does someone just walk into a bank and open a corporate escrow account without the owner present?" I asked, my voice rising in pitch. "Don't they need a physical ID? Don't they need me standing in the lobby?" Imogen and Arlo exchanged a look. It was the kind of look professionals give each other before delivering the fatal blow. "They do," Imogen said smoothly, "unless the account manager pushing the paperwork through the system has a vested interest in looking the other way. Tell me, Liam, does the name Caden Trask mean anything to you?" The name hit me like a physical punch. I leaned back in my leather chair, staring at the ceiling. "Yeah," I breathed. "Caden Trask. He's Julian's fraternity brother. He's a vice president at regional branch of Meridian Commerce Bank." "Bingo," Arlo said, tapping the table. "Caden Trask is the one who authorized the account. He bypassed the physical verification requirements, citing a long-standing relationship with the guarantor, meaning you. He rubber-stamped the paperwork, and suddenly, Julian had a pristine, highly rated corporate entity to wash his crypto investments through. It's a triangle," Imogen said, drawing a shape in the air with her pen. "Julian generates the dirty money through his fraudulent app. Rebecca uses your divorce disclosures to set up the ghost account. Caden approves the account at the bank. The money flows in, looks like legitimate corporate revenue for your vac company, and then gets quietly transferred out to offshore wallets. I looked down at my hands. They were rough, calloused from years of pulling wire and lifting sheet metal. I had spent 8 years building a company on sweat and reputation, and in 4 days, while I was sitting in my house trying to process the end of my marriage, my wife had dismantled my entire life from behind a laptop. The stack of papers, I said suddenly, looking up at Imogen. Yesterday, she came to my office yesterday holding a stack of papers. She said they were legal bills for Julian's defense. She begged me for money. Imogen leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. Did you touch the papers, Liam? Did you take them from her? No, I said. I told her I was the ATM and I was out of order. I had my foreman escort her out. Imogen let out a slow, heavy breath. Thank God. Liam, if she handed you those papers, she was trying to establish a physical connection. She wanted you on camera accepting documents related to Julian's defense. She was trying to build a narrative that you were actively participating in funding his legal team, that you were aware of the money. My stomach turned over. It wasn't desperation I had seen in her eyes yesterday in the lobby. It was calculation. She knew the federal subpoena had landed. She knew the DOJ was closing in. She was trying to drag me down to serve as the ultimate fall guy. So what do we do? I asked, the anger finally burning through the shock. How do we prove it? They have my signature. They have Caden inside the bank corroborating the account. The DOJ is ripping my office apart right now. We go on the offensive, Imogen said, her voice dropping into a register of pure, terrifying competence. But we have a massive problem, Liam. The DOJ freeze is absolute. You have no money. Arlo and I are working on retainer right now, but your operating capital is 0. Can you make payroll on Friday? I looked at the mahogany table. No, I have $2 grand in cash. Payroll is 85. Arlo winced, rubbing his forehead. If you miss payroll, your guys walk. If your guys walk, you default on the municipal contract. If you default on the school board contract, the penalty clauses will bankrupt you even if we beat the federal charges. They set you up to bleed out before you even get to a courtroom. I won't let them lose their houses because I married a sociopath, I said, my voice hardening. I looked at Imogen. I own a heavy-duty truck. I own 3 vintage Indian motorcycles in a storage unit that Rebecca doesn't know about because I bought them before we met. I have a collection of high-end commercial tools. What can I liquidate legally without triggering a DOJ asset seizure? Imogen tapped her pen against her chin, thinking fast. The freeze applies to accounts tied to your settin and the business een. Physical assets that don't carry a registered title, like the tools, you can sell for cash today. The motorcycles, if they are titled in your name, are risky. But if the storage unit was never disclosed in the divorce, the DOJ doesn't have it on their immediate sweep list. You can pawn them. It's a gray area, but if you're using the funds exclusively for verifiable payroll, I can defend it in front of a judge. I'll make the calls, I said, standing up. Wait, Imogen said, holding up a hand. There's one more thing. If we are going to break their narrative, we need to prove Rebecca was the one manipulating the documents. We need the metadata from that PDF she created. We need the physical laptop she used to do it. She moved out 6 months ago, I said. She lives in a luxury apartment downtown. I can't exactly walk in and take her laptop. No, you can't, Imogen agreed. But we can force her to bring it out into the open. We need her to panic. Real, uncalculated panic. How? Imogen smiled. It wasn't a warm expression. By making her think Caden Trask is cutting a deal with the feds. Arlo looked up, his eyes widening. That's incredibly dangerous, Imogen. If the DOJ finds out we're running a counterintelligence operation on their primary suspects, we aren't doing anything, Imogen said smoothly. We are simply going to file a motion of discovery against Meridian Commerce Bank, specifically naming Caden Trask, requesting all internal communications regarding the escrow account. The moment that subpoena hits the bank's legal department, Caden will panic. He's a corporate VP, not a hardened criminal. When he panics, he'll call Julian. Julian is locked down, so he'll call Rebecca. And when she realizes Caden is exposed, she'll try to destroy the evidence. I finished, seeing the shape of the trap. Exactly, Imogen said. We don't need to steal the laptop. We just need to wait for her to throw it in the river. I left Imogen's office with a list of tasks and a ticking clock in my head. Arlo was already drafting the motion of discovery before the elevator doors closed on my floor. I had 48 hours to turn a storage unit full of metal into $85,000 of untraceable payroll cash. I drove out to an industrial park in Aurora. The storage facility was a sprawling concrete maze that smelled like hot asphalt and dust. I punched my code into the keypad. Unit 412. I hadn't been here in over a year. When I rolled the corrugated metal door up, the afternoon sun caught the chrome of the bikes. There were 3 of them, a 1948 Indian Chief, a 1937 Scout, and a custom chopper I had spent 5 years building from the frame up in my 20s. They were covered in canvas tarps, smelling faintly of motor oil and old leather. They were my escape hatch. The only things I owned that weren't tied to the HVAC company or the suburban house I had shared with Rebecca. I pulled my phone out and scrolled to a number I hadn't called in 3 years. Jasper Locke. He ran a high-end vintage restoration shop out of Boulder. He had been trying to buy the Chief off me since the day I finished restoring it. He answered on the second ring. Liam, tell me you're finally ready to sell. I'm ready, I said. But it has to be today, and it has to be cash. There was a pause on the line. All of it? The Chief? All 3, I said. And the snap-on tool chests in the back. I need 90 grand, Jasper. If you can be at my unit in Aurora in an hour with a trailer and a duffel bag, they're yours. 90 is steep for a rush job, he said, his voice dropping dropping into business mode. 75, 85. I'm not negotiating, Jasper. You know what these are worth. You can flip the chief alone for 60 at auction next month. I need 85 today. He sighed. Text me the address. I'll be there in an hour. I spent that hour unstrapping the tarps and polishing the dust off the fenders. It felt like standing over a grave. These bikes were the last pure thing I had from before the marriage, before the municipal contracts, before the federal subpoenas. When Jasper pulled up in his heavy-duty flatbed, he didn't ask questions. He walked around the bikes, checked the VIN plates, and handed me a heavy canvas bag. I counted it on the hood of his truck. $85,000 in stacked hundreds and fifties. It felt impossibly light for what it was buying me. You're in a bad spot, man, Jasper said, tightening the winch on the trailer. It wasn't a question. I'm managing it. Well, if you need a job, I always need a good welder. I'll keep it in mind, I said. I drove the cash straight to my house. I didn't trust a safety deposit box. If the feds expanded their net, they could freeze those too. I shoved the duffel bag into the false bottom of my bedroom closet. Payroll was secured. My guys wouldn't lose their homes. That was step one. Step two was surviving the next 24 hours without the DOJ realizing I was operating a shadow company out of my truck. At 4 in the afternoon, my phone rang. It was Thad. Liam, we got a problem at the West Side High School, he said. His voice was tight, the background noise full of grinding metal and shouting. The school board's project manager is here. Name's Stellan. He's throwing a fit because he tried calling the main office 3 times today to confirm the crane delivery for tomorrow, and the line is dead. Says it goes straight to a disconnected tone. My stomach clenched. The feds had physically unplugged the servers and the VoIP system at the office. What did you tell him? I asked, pulling out of my driveway. I told him it was a localized outage, an issue with the local grid, but he's not buying it. He says if he can't get an updated certificate of insurance from our back office by tomorrow morning, he's halting the crane drop. If we miss the crane drop, we're off schedule, and the penalty clauses kick in. Keep him there, I said. I'm 10 minutes out. I broke 3 speed limits getting to the job site. The West Side High School was a massive concrete structure, currently surrounded by chain link fencing and our company trucks. I found Thad standing near the loading dock, arguing with a man in a crisp polo shirt and a hard hat that looked like it had never seen a day of actual labor. Stellan, I said, walking up with a heavy, confident stride. I put my hand out. He took it, but his grip was rigid. Liam, care to explain why your entire administrative office has fallen off the map? Stellan crossed his arms. I don't like contractors who go dark on me. It makes me nervous. And when I get nervous, I halt work. Completely understandable, I said smoothly, forcing a calm smile I didn't feel. We're migrating our entire server network to a new cloud-based system this week to handle the volume for this contract. The IT guys swore there wouldn't be any downtime on the phones, but you know how tech goes. Total cluster. Stellan didn't blink. I don't care about your IT problems. I need the updated COI on my desk before that crane swings a 20-ton chiller over a public school roof. If I don't have it, the crane doesn't swing. I nodded slowly. The certificate of insurance. It was a standard document. Normally, my receptionist could email it in 30 seconds. But the digital file was on the frozen servers, and the physical copy was in a filing cabinet currently sitting in an evidence locker at the DOJ field office. You'll have it first thing tomorrow morning, I said. I better, Stellan said, turning toward his truck. Or you're off the site, Liam. He drove away. Thad looked at me, his face grim under his hard hat. We don't have access to the quad, do we? No, I said. So what's the play? You can't fake an insurance doc. It's federal fraud. I'm not faking anything, I said, pulling my phone out. I'm going to have to go to the broker directly and get a fresh copy. Thad frowned. Your broker is Coralie Wynn, right? The one whose office is in the same building as Meridian Commerce Bank? I froze. The phone felt heavy in my hand. He was right. Coralie's insurance firm was on the 3rd floor of the Meridian building downtown. The exact same building where Caden Trask worked. The exact same building Imogen had just served with a massive, highly aggressive DOJ-adjacent subpoena an hour ago. If I walked into that building right now, there was a very real chance I'd bump into the man who was currently realizing his life was about to implode. Yeah, I said quietly. It's in the Meridian building. You sure that's a good idea? Thad asked, wiping sweat from his forehead. You've been dodging the main office all day for a reason. You walk into that bank plaza, you're in the open. I don't have a choice, Thad. No COI, no crane. No crane, we default. They win. I'm not letting them win. I got back in my truck and pointed it downtown. The late afternoon traffic was a crawl. My mind was racing, running through every possible variable. I needed the document from Coralie, and I needed to get in and out of the Meridian Plaza without Caden Trask or the bank's legal team spotting me. I pulled into the underground parking garage beneath the Meridian Tower just after 5 p.m. The suit and tie crowd was already filtering out, heading for their cars. I kept my head down, wearing my standard work jacket and a baseball cap. I took the service elevator up to the 3rd floor, avoiding the main glass lobby. Coralie's office was quiet. Her receptionist was already packing up her purse. I asked for Coralie, and a moment later she came out of her glass-walled office. She was a sharp, no-nonsense woman in her 50s who had handled my commercial policies since I started the business out of a single van. Liam, she said, looking surprised. We usually do this over email. What brings you down here? Server crash, I lied smoothly. Complete wipeout of the system. I need a hard copy of the school board COI stamped and signed, and I need it right now for a crane drop tomorrow. She narrowed her eyes slightly but nodded. Give me 5 minutes. I stood in the reception area, pacing the carpet. The minutes dragged drag. Every time the elevator dinged in the hallway, my muscles tensed. At 5:15 p.m., Coralie walked out with a crisp manila folder. Here you go. Stamped, signed, and active. Call me when your servers are back up so we can resync the digital files. Thanks, Coralie, you saved me. I took the folder and walked quickly out to the elevator bank. I pressed the down button. The illuminated numbers above the doors ticked down. 6, 5, 4, ding. The doors slid open. Standing in the center of the elevator car, holding a leather briefcase and looking like he hadn't slept in a week, was Caden Trask. He was wearing a tailored navy suit, but his tie was pulled down and his collar was unbuttoned. He had a phone pressed tightly to his ear. When he saw me standing in the hallway, he froze. The color completely drained from his face. He slowly lowered the phone from his ear. The doors began to slide shut. I shot my hand out, catching the rubber bumper. The doors bounced back open. I stepped into the elevator. Going down? I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. Caden swallowed hard, stepping back against the polished steel wall of the car. He looked at the manila folder in my hand, then up at my face. He was terrified. Liam, he stammered. I was just leaving. I know, I said. I hear it's been a busy day for Meridian Commerce's legal department. Subpoenas have a way of ruining an afternoon, don't they? He didn't answer. He looked frantically at the floor buttons. The elevator began to descend. I don't know what you're talking about, Caden squeaked. You're a bad liar, Caden. You always were. Even when Julian was dragging you to those awful networking dinners. I took a step closer, crowding him into the corner of the small box. You stamped an escrow account using stolen documents. You funneled stolen federal money under my name. I didn't know, Caden said, his voice cracking. Julian said it was a joint venture. Rebecca brought the paperwork. She had your signature. It looked completely legitimate. Julian is looking at 20 years, Caden. You think he's not going to roll on you to get a plea deal? You think Rebecca isn't going to throw you to the wolves the second the DOJ knocks on her luxury apartment door? The elevator chimed. Ground floor. The doors slid open to the bustling main lobby. Caden didn't move. He looked like he was about to vomit on his expensive shoes. You have one way out of this, I told him, leaning in close so only he could hear. When they ask for the internal communications, you give them everything. Every text, every email from Rebecca. If you try to hide it, I will make sure the federal prosecutor knows you were the architect, not just the rubber stamp. I didn't wait for his answer. I walked out of the elevator and across the marble lobby, blending into the crowd of commuters. My heart was hammering against my ribs, but my hands were steady. I had the qua. I had the payroll cash, and I had just lit the match under Caden Trask. By the time I reached my truck in the underground garage, my phone was ringing. It was Imogen. Liam, she said, and her voice wasn't smooth or confident anymore. It was sharp with urgency. Where are you? In the Meridian parking garage. I had to get an insurance document for the site. Get out of there. Right now. I'm leaving, I said, starting the engine. What happened? Arlo just got a call from the bank's compliance officer. Caden Trask didn't go to the legal department when our subpoena hit. I know, I said. I just saw him in the elevator. He looked panicked. Liam, listen to me. Imogen snapped. He didn't go to legal because he was busy scrubbing the servers. He tried to delete the escrow origination files. The bank's internal security caught him, but he wiped a significant chunk of the metadata before they locked him out of the system. I slammed the brakes before reaching the exit ramp. What does that mean for us? It means the digital trail connecting Rebecca to the account creation is severely compromised. If we can't prove she made the digital file, the DOJ is going to default back to the physical signature. Your signature. We need her laptop, I said, the reality crashing down on me. Yes, Imogen said grimly. We need the physical hardware, and we need it before she figures out Caden screwed up the deletion. I merged into the heavy downtown traffic, gripping the steering wheel tight enough to make my knuckles ache. I can't just kick her door down, Imogen. She lives in a secure building with a doorman and cameras in the lobby. If I get arrested for breaking and entering, the DOJ doesn't even need a trial. They just point to my mugshot and close the book. I'm not telling you to kick the door down, Imogen said, her voice crackling slightly over the truck's Bluetooth. I'm telling you we need that machine. If we wait for a judge to issue a subpoena for her personal property, she'll have wiped it completely or thrown it in a dumpster. Can you get inside? No. I gave my key back during the settlement. I stared at the taillights of a delivery truck in front of me. I thought about the timber cabin in Aspen. I thought about the pitch binders. I thought about the dynamic of that family. They were a house of cards held together by arrogance and other people's money. When the money stopped, the loyalty evaporated. I can't get inside, I said, my voice flattening out. But I know someone who can. Who? I'll call you back when I have it. I hung up. I pulled into a surface lot, put the truck in park, and scrolled through my contacts until I found Chloe. I hadn't spoken to my former sister-in-law since the night I walked out of that cabin. I hit dial. It rang 4 times. I was about to hang up when she answered. Liam? Her voice was thin. It lacked the theatrical, practiced boredom she usually projected. She just sounded tired. Where are you, Chloe? I'm at my apartment, she said defensively. Why are you calling me? If this is about Julian, my parents already told me. I don't care about Julian, I interrupted. I care about the fact that your family is currently drowning, and I know exactly how much credit card debt you're sitting on. I also know you can't make the minimum payments because Rebecca isn't slipping you cash from my checking account anymore. Silence on the line. Just the faint sound of a television in the background. I have $2,000 in cash in my center console, I lied. It was actually the last of my lockbox money sitting in my pocket. I want to buy something. If you help me, the cash is yours. No strings, no repayment. Buy what? She asked. The hesitation was there, but the greed was louder. I need to see you in person. There's a diner on 6th and Broadway. Be there in 20 minutes. I didn't wait for her to agree. I ended the call and put the truck back in drive. When I walked into the diner, Chloe was already sitting in a corner booth. She was wearing designer sunglasses indoors, hiding her eyes, but she couldn't hide the frayed edges. Her expensive jacket looked rumpled. The faux influencer lifestyle requires constant capital, and when the tap runs dry, the decay sets in fast. I slid into the booth across from her. I didn't order coffee. I didn't say hello. I reached into my jacket, pulled out the thick envelope containing the $2,000 in hundreds, and set it on the sticky Formica table. I kept my hand resting on top of it. Chloe stared at the envelope. She swallowed hard. "What is this, Liam?" "This is a lifeline," I said, "and it's yours. But you have to do exactly one thing for me." "I'm not doing anything illegal," she said, though her eyes never left my hand. "It's not illegal. It's a family favor. You still have a key to Rebecca's place, right? The fob for the building?" She nodded slowly. "I need her laptop. The silver MacBook she keeps on the kitchen island. I need you to go over there, walk inside, put it in your bag, and bring it to me." Chloe recoiled, her head snapping up. "Are you insane? I can't steal my sister's computer. She'd kill me. She won't even know it was you," I said evenly. "She's losing her mind right now. She's running around the city trying to manage Julian's legal defense. If she comes home and it's gone, she'll think she left it somewhere. Or she'll think Julian's people took it to scrub it. She won't suspect you. Why do you even want it? Because she used it to forge my signature on a bank document, and the federal government is currently dismantling my company because of it," I said, leaning forward. I didn't raise my voice, but I let the absolute gravity of the situation bleed into every word. "Julian is going to prison. Chloe, that's a fact. But Rebecca is trying to drag me down with him. If I go down, the last remaining source of real money connected to this family is gone forever. I'm fighting for my life right now. You can help me end this. Take the $2,000 and walk away." I slid my hand off the envelope. Chloe stared at the money. I could see the gears turning in her head. Loyalty to her sister versus $2,000 in untraceable cash. In the end, it wasn't even a contest. The coastal elite solidarity only lasted until the credit card companies started calling. She reached out and snatched the envelope, shoving it into her designer purse. "She's at my parents' house right now," Chloe muttered, looking away from me. "They're meeting with a second mortgage broker. Her apartment should be empty." "I'll drive," I said. We didn't speak on the way to the high rise. I parked around the corner, leaving the engine running. Chloe got out, her purse clutched tightly against her side. I watched her walk through the revolving glass doors of the lobby, flash a smile at the doorman, and head for the elevators. I sat in the cab of my truck, listening to the rhythmic thrum of the diesel engine. 5 minutes passed. 10. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Arlo, I ignored it. If things went sideways in there, I couldn't be distracted. At 12 minutes, the lobby doors spun. Chloe walked out. She was walking fast, her head down. She had a canvas tote bag slung over her shoulder that looked heavy. She opened the passenger door and dropped the tote bag onto the floorboard before climbing in. "Drive," she snapped. I pulled away from the curb and merged into traffic. I reached down and unzipped the tote. Sitting at the bottom, beneath a copy of a fashion magazine she had clearly used for cover, was a sleek, silver MacBook. "Did anyone see you?" I asked. "No." The doorman was on the phone. I just walked in, grabbed it off the counter, and walked out. Chloe crossed her arms, staring out the window. Her hands were shaking slightly. "She's going to destroy me if she finds out." "She's not going to find out," I said. "I'll drop you off at your place." We never had this conversation. 30 minutes later, I walked into Imogen's office holding the tote bag. Arlo was still sitting at the conference table looking physically ill. Standing next to him was a man I hadn't seen before. He was tall, painfully thin, and wearing a faded band t-shirt under a very expensive, unstructured linen blazer. "Liam, this is Crispin Ives," Imogen said, gesturing to the man. "He's an independent digital forensics contractor. He used to work for the SEC before he decided private sector consulting paid better." Crispin gave me a brief, jerky nod. He didn't offer to shake hands. His eyes were fixed on the bag I was holding. "You actually got it," Arlo said, wiping a hand across his sweaty forehead. "I can't believe you actually got it." I pulled the laptop out and set it on the mahogany table. "Will she know we've been in it?" I asked Crispin. "Doesn't matter if she knows," Crispin said, pulling a bundle of cables from his own backpack. "By the time I'm done with this, I'll have a mirrored image of the entire hard drive. She can throw the physical machine into a wood chipper tomorrow morning, and we'll still have the data. The question is whether it's encrypted with a hardware key." He opened the lid. The screen flared to life, displaying a login prompt. "Password?" Crispin asked, not looking at me. "I don't know," I said. "Try Aspen 2023. Crispin typed it in. The screen shook slightly, rejecting it. "Try Julian app," Arlo suggested weakly. "Rejected." Crispin sighed, pulling a small, black USB drive from his pocket and slotting it into the side of the machine. "Amateurs, give me 4 minutes." He typed a rapid series of commands into his own secondary laptop, which was connected to Rebecca's machine via the USB. I didn't understand what he was doing, but the speed of it was terrifying. 4 minutes later, the login screen on the silver MacBook vanished, replaced by Rebecca's desktop. "We're in," Crispin said, adjusting his glasses. "What am I looking for?" "We need the metadata for a PDF," Imogen said, pulling a physical copy of the escrow agreement from her folder and sliding it across the table. "It was generated roughly 7 months ago. It's a master agreement for an escrow account at Meridian Commerce Bank. We need to prove this specific machine authored the original document, and we need to prove it took the signature from a secondary file on this drive." Crispin's fingers flew across the keyboard. Windows opened and closed so fast they were just a blur of white light. Checking the root directory for document creation logs, he muttered. Filtering by date range, 7 months ago, looking for PDF extensions. The room was dead silent. I could hear the faint hum of the city traffic 14 floors down. I looked at Arlo. The accountant looked like he was bracing for an impact. Got it, Crispin said sharply. He hit a key. A split screen appeared on his monitor. On the left was the escrow document with my flawless forged signature. On the right was the divorce disclosure form Arlo had shown me earlier. Here's your smoking gun, Crispin said, pointing at the screen with a pen. The system registry shows the escrow document was compiled on this exact machine at 11:14 p.m., 4 days after your Aspen trip. But more importantly, here's the cache file for her photo editing software. She literally cropped your signature out of the divorce PDF, ran it through a vector smoothing filter to make it look clean, and dropped it into the Meridian Bank contract. Imogen let out a sharp, triumphant breath. That's it. That's the chain of custody. We have the digital fingerprint proving Rebecca manufactured the forgery. That breaks the DOJ's narrative, Arlo said, his voice rising with relief. If we show this to the federal prosecutor, they have to drop the freeze on the HVAC accounts. It proves Liam was the victim of identity theft, not a co-conspirator. Print the logs, Imogen ordered Crispin. Print everything. I want the hex data, the timestamps, the application histories. I'm going to walk this directly into the U.S. Attorney's office tomorrow morning and shove it down their throats. Crispin hit print. The heavy laser printer in the corner of the room whirred to life. I should have felt relieved. I had the proof. Payroll was secure. I had beaten them at their own game. But as I watched the pages slide out of the printer, a cold, heavy feeling settled in the pit of my stomach. Wait, I said, looking back at the screen. Crispin paused. What? I leaned over the table, staring at a folder Crispin had minimized on the desktop. The title of the folder was Meridian/Schools. Open that, I said, pointing at it. Liam, we have what we need, Imogen said gently. We don't need to go digging through her personal. Open the folder. Crispin, I repeated, my voice hard. Crispin clicked it. A window populated with a half-dozen documents. One of them was an email draft, saved as a PDF. The subject line read, Roading Requirements, West Side High Project. Open the email, I said. Crispin double-clicked it. The document expanded to fill the screen. It was an email thread. The sender was Stellan, the school board's project manager, the guy who had screamed at me at the job site today, the guy who had forced me to go downtown to the Meridian building to get the insurance document. The recipient was Rebecca. The date on the email was 6 weeks ago, a full month before my company even submitted a bid for the municipal contract. I read the text of the email in silence. Rebecca, as discussed, the board is prepared to award Liam's firm the county HVAC servicing contract. Per Julian's request, the initial payment routing will require a certified escrow account to handle the volume of the bond. I've attached the specific Meridian bank account parameters you'll need to set up beforehand to ensure the funds flow correctly. Make sure Caden processes this on his end smoothly. Best, Stellan. I stepped back from the table. The air in the room felt suddenly thin. They hadn't just forged my signature to open an account. They had rigged the entire municipal contract from the very beginning. Julian and Rebecca hadn't just used my company as a shell to wash old crypto money. They had orchestrated the biggest contract of my career using a corrupt project manager on the school board, specifically to funnel public taxpayer money through the fraudulent escrow account. Liam, Arlo whispered, reading the screen over my shoulder. This is public corruption. This is municipal bid rigging. Stellan wasn't just an angry project manager. Stellan was part of Julian's network. And today, when he demanded I get that insurance document, he wasn't doing his job. He was maneuvering me into the Meridian building so I would be seen on camera near the bank on the exact day the DOJ subpoenas hit. He was laying the physical groundwork for the prosecution's case. Imogen, I said, my voice barely recognizable to my own ears. If the DOJ sees this email, they won't care about the forged signature. No, Imogen said, her face completely pale. They won't. If the school board contract was rigged from the start, the feds will argue you were in on it. They'll say you set up the fake fight in Aspen as a cover. They'll say you were the mastermind who used his wife to do the dirty work. The trap wasn't just a forged bank document. The trap was my entire company. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out. It was Thad. I answered it. Yeah, Liam, Thad said, his voice loud over the sound of heavy machinery. I'm still at the West Side site. You're not going to believe this. Try me. Stellan just came back, and he didn't come alone. There are 3 black Ford Explorers parked by the loading dock. Guys in windbreakers are walking the perimeter. They're telling all the guys to drop their tools. They're locking down the site. Tell the guys to stand down, Thad, I said, my voice dead flat. Nobody argues. Nobody gets in their face. Have everyone step back from the equipment and let them do what they came to do. Liam, they're tagging the trucks, Thad said, panic finally cracking his voice. They're impounding the fleet, the welders, the raw copper, everything. If they take the trucks, we don't have a business tomorrow. Let them take the trucks, I said. I'm fixing this right now. Just keep the crew calm and tell them they're still getting paid on Friday. I ended the call and looked at Imogen. She wasn't paralyzed. She was already moving, shoving the stack of still warm papers from the laser printer into her leather tote bag. They're raiding the West Side school site, I told her. Stellan brought them in. Of course he did, Imogen said, zipping her bag with a sharp, violent motion. He's trying to control the blast radius. If he brings the DOJ down on you, he gets to play the hero. He paints himself as a diligent municipal worker who caught a corrupt contractor. He throws you under the bus, and it completely insulates him from Julian's fallout. So what do? Go go to the site? No, Imogen snapped, tossing her jacket over her shoulder. You don't argue with field agents in windbreakers. They don't care about metadata, and they don't have the authority to stop a raid once the warrant is signed. We go to the organ grinder. We go to the U.S. Attorney's office. She looked at Arlo and Crispin. You two stay here. Keep digging through that laptop. Find out exactly where the money from the escrow account was supposed to go. I want account numbers. I want offshore routing codes. If Rebecca and Stellan were moving Julian's money, I want to know where they hid the parachute. Crispin just grunted, his eyes already glued back to the monitor. Arlo gave a weak nod, looking like he needed a stiff drink and a long nap. We took Imogen's car. It was a black Audi sedan, and she drove it like a weapon, weaving through the downtown gridlock with a terrifying silent focus. We didn't talk. My phone kept buzzing in my pocket. Crew leaders, suppliers, my receptionist who had gone home for the day but was seeing the news break on local channels. I ignored all of them. I just watched the concrete monolith of the federal courthouse getting closer. We parked in a public garage 2 blocks away and walked. The afternoon heat radiating off the pavement was suffocating. The security checkpoint at the federal building took 15 minutes. Belts off, shoes off, pockets empty. I had to leave my pocket knife with a bored-looking guard in a glass booth. Once we were through the metal detectors, Imogen didn't hesitate. She marched to the elevators and hit the button for the 8th floor, the Department of Justice, Financial Crimes Division. When the doors opened, we stepped into a sterile, carpeted lobby that smelled like ozone and stale coffee. A receptionist sat behind a thick sheet of bulletproof glass. Imogen Vance, Imogen told the glass, holding up her bar association card. I represent Liam Hensley, owner of Apex Commercial HVAC. I need to see Asa Kessler right now. The receptionist blinked, glancing down at a monitor. Miss Hensley is the subject of an active enforcement action. Miss Vance, Assistant United States Attorney Kessler, is not taking meetings regarding you call Kessler. Imogen interrupted, her voice dropping to a low, dangerous register, and you tell him I am holding irrefutable digital forensics proving his primary witness in a federal fraud case just perjured himself to secure a warrant. You tell him I have the metadata proving municipal bid rigging by the school board. And you tell him if he doesn't walk out here in the next 60 seconds, I am taking this file directly to the Denver Post. The receptionist stared at her, swallowed hard, and picked up a phone. She murmured something into the receiver. 30 seconds later, a heavy wooden door buzzed and clicked open. A man walked out. He looked to be in his late 40s, wearing a cheap suit and a permanent scowl. He had dark circles under his eyes and a tie that looked like it had been knotted in a hurry. This was Kessler, the man who had frozen my life. Miss Vance, Kessler said, looking annoyed. He barely glanced at me. You have a lot of nerve walking in here while my agents are currently boxing up your client's warehouse. Stop the raid, Kessler, Imogen said, walking straight up to him and shoving the manila folder against his chest. You're embarrassing yourself. Kessler took the folder instinctively, but he didn't open it. Excuse me? Your narrative is that my client used his company to launder money for Julian Trask. Your evidence is an escrow account with his signature, and the testimony of Stellan Morrow from the county school board. Imogen tapped the folder in his hands. Open it. Kessler frowned, opening the flap. He pulled out the printouts Crispin had generated. Page 1, Imogen dictated coldly. Digital forensics pulled 30 minutes ago from a laptop belonging to Rebecca Trask, Julian's sister and my client's ex-wife. It proves the escrow document was forged on her machine using a signature lifted from a sealed family court disclosure. Page 4, an email between Rebecca Trask and Stellan Morrow dated 6 weeks ago, proving they rigged the municipal contract specifically to create a vehicle for Julian's money. Kessler's eyes flicked over the pages. He was a prosecutor. He read fast, and he knew what he was looking at. The scowl on his face slowly deepened, transforming from annoyance to a very specific kind of professional horror. Where did you get this? Kessler demanded, his voice tight. This laptop isn't in evidence. It's in my office, Imogen said, and it's currently being imaged by a former SEC digital forensics contractor. I'll hand the physical machine over to your office by 5 o'clock, but right now, you have a massive problem. Your cooperating witness, Stellan Morrow, is actually a co-conspirator. He used your office to launch a raid on my client's job site today to destroy the physical evidence of his own involvement. You are currently acting as the private security force for the people you're supposed to be investigating. Kessler stopped reading. He looked up at me for the first time. Really looked at me. Not as a suspect on a whiteboard, but as a guy standing in a courthouse lobby in work boots and a Carhartt jacket. This email, Kessler said slowly, tapping the paper. It proves Morrow bypassed the blind bidding process. It proves he instructed Rebecca Trask on how to set up the dummy account at Meridian Commerce. Yes, I said. And Caden Trask, the VP at Meridian, rubber-stamped it because Julian told him to. It's a closed loop, and I wasn't inside it. Kessler closed the folder. The silence in the lobby felt heavy, thick with the grinding gears of federal bureaucracy shifting directions. I can't release the freeze on the company accounts instantly, Kessler said, rubbing his jaw. The administrative hold takes at least 48 hours to unwind through a judge. Even if I file the motion right now, the money is locked until Monday. My chest tightened. Monday. Monday meant Friday payroll bounced. Monday meant 50 guys went into the weekend broke, their automatic mortgage payments kicking back non-sufficient funds. Keep the freeze on the digital accounts, I said. I don't care. I need the physical assets released. I need the impound order on my trucks lifted, and I need the agents off my job sites. Now. Kessler looked at Imogen, then back at me. He pulled his cell cell phone from his pocket. I'll pull the agents back from the school, Kessler said, dialing a number. But I'm sending 2 cars to Stellan Morrow's office right now. And I want that laptop delivered to my evidence clerk before the sun goes down. You'll have it, Imogen said. We turned and walked out. I didn't wait to hear Kessler give the order. When we got back to the street, the sun was beginning to dip behind the mountains, casting long, harsh shadows across the concrete. I pulled my phone out and called Thad. Yeah, Thad answered. He sounded exhausted. Talk to me, I said. They stopped, Thad said. About 2 minutes ago, the guy in charge got a call. He got off the phone, looked really pissed off, and told his guys to start taking the tape off the trucks. They're packing up their SUVs. They're leaving. A knot in my spine I didn't know was there finally released. Are the guys okay? They're spooked, but the tools are safe, and the fleet is intact. Good, I said. Tell them to pack it in for the day. Full shift pay for everyone. I'll see you tomorrow. I hung up. I looked at Imogen. She was leaning against her car, checking her emails, looking perfectly calm. Thank you, I said. She looked up. Don't thank me yet, Liam. We stopped the bleeding on the business. We cleared your name with the DOJ, but we have a major loose end. Rebecca. Imogen agreed. She still thinks she's winning. She doesn't know Chloe took the laptop. She doesn't know Kessler just saw her emails with Stellan. Right now, she thinks you're going down for Julian's crimes, and she is likely scrambling to move whatever money she actually managed to pull out of that escrow account before the feds shut it down completely. My phone vibrated again. I looked at the screen. Speak of the devil. It was a text from Rebecca. I know about the DOJ raid on your site today. I told you Julian's lawyers needed a retainer. If you're ready to stop being stubborn and actually help family, meet me at the house in Cherry Creek. Bring the checkbook. Otherwise, I let my lawyers tell the feds exactly how much you knew about the crypto app. I read the text twice. The sheer blinding audacity of it was almost impressive. She was trying to extort me with the very federal raid she had engineered, completely unaware that I had just walked out of the prosecutor's office holding the gun she used to shoot me. I showed the screen to Imogen. She read it, a slow, shark-like smile spreading across her face. Oh, she's desperate. She knows the walls are closing in, and she's trying to shake you down for escape money before the DOJ knocks on her door. Do I go? I asked. Yes, Imogen said. You go, but you don't take a checkbook. You take the reality check. I left Imogen in the courthouse plaza, walked back to my truck, and pointed it toward Cherry Creek. The sun was almost gone, the sky bruised purple over the Rockies. Traffic was light. My head was finally quiet. The panic that had been riding in my passenger seat for the last 24 hours was gone. I pulled up to her parents' house. Faux Tudor, heavy brick, manicured lawn. The symbol of the sophisticated coastal elites trapped in the Denver suburbs. The house her parents had leveraged to pay Julian's first wave of lawyers. I walked up the slate path and rang the bell. Rebecca opened the door. She had brushed her hair. She had put on a little makeup. She was wearing a cashmere sweater. She was projecting control. She looked at my empty hands, then frowned. Where's the checkbook, Liam? Didn't bring it. Her eyes narrowed. Then why are you here? If you don't fund the retainer right now, I am calling Julian's lawyer and telling them everything about your involvement in the escrow account. I told you I'm not playing around. I stepped into the foyer. It smelled like expensive candles and old dust. Call them, I said. Call Kessler directly if you want. I just left his office. She blinked. The smugness wavered just for a second. What are you talking about? I know about Stellan, Rebecca. I know you two rigged the school board contract to funnel Julian's money. You're bluffing. You don't know anything. You fix air conditioners. I fix air conditioners, but I also know how to hire a good digital forensics guy. The raid on my site was called off an hour ago. Kessler pulled his agents back after we showed him the email thread between you and Stellan. Her face went slack. The color drained out of her cheeks, leaving her looking hollow. How? She whispered, her voice cracking. How did you get my emails? You shouldn't have cut off Chloe's credit cards, I said simply. Family loyalty is expensive. She took a physical step back, hitting the edge of the hallway console table. A decorative ceramic vase wobbled. Kessler has the laptop, Rebecca. He has the metadata for the forged signature. He knows you lifted it from the divorce disclosures. He knows Stellan perjured himself to get the warrant. Right now, there are 2 federal cars sitting outside Stellan's office. And I'd bet my entire company there's a warrant being drafted for your arrest as we speak. She stared at me. Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. The pristine, arrogant armor she had worn for 8 years shattered right in front of me. She didn't look sophisticated anymore. She just looked small, terrified. Liam, please. She finally choked out. The tears started. Real tears this time, ruining her careful makeup. Please, I was just trying to help Julian. He's my brother. My parents were going to lose this house. I didn't want to hurt you. You wanted to bankrupt me, I said, my voice completely flat. You wanted to take down my business, my guys, everything I built, just to cover your brother's fraud. You sat on a patio in Aspen and laughed at me while you planned to steal my identity. I'm sorry, she sobbed, grabbing my jacket sleeve. I'll do whatever you want. I'll testify against Stellan. I'll testify against Julian. Just help me pay for a lawyer. Please, Liam. I looked at her hand, clutching my Carhartt jacket. I remembered all the times she had brushed dust off it, apologizing to her friends for my rough edges. I reached up and pulled her hand off my sleeve. I'm just the ATM, Rebecca, I said, and this machine is permanently out of order. I turned around, opened the heavy oak door, and walked out. I didn't look back when she started screaming my name. I got into my truck and drove away. The next morning, I woke up at 5 a.m. I put on my work boots. I drove to the diner on 4th Street. The guys were already there, filling the booths, laughing, complaining about the heat. Thad was sitting in the back, drinking coffee black, looking over the dispatch sheets. When he saw me, he nodded. Sight's clear, Thad said. Crane is en en route. Stellan's phone is going straight to voicemail. School board sent a new guy to oversee the drop. Good, I said, sliding into the booth across from him. I flagged down the waitress and ordered 2 eggs and a black coffee. Thad slid a piece of paper across the table. It was the weekly payroll authorization. We good on this? I thought about the $85,000 in cash sitting in my closet, the release order Kessler promised for the business accounts on Monday, and the heavy, quiet peace of knowing the past was finally dead and buried. I pulled a pen from my pocket and signed my name. Yeah, Thad, I said. We're good. Let's get to work.